some Australian farmers are doing with hydroponics and vertical farming. Instead of growing these micro herbs and everything like that, they're growing turf, so they're growing grass hydroponically, vertically. So instead of then importing all these nuts from, with loads of soya in them from South America, which is going to have a massive sort of carbon footprint, why not grow grass in a greenhouse or in a hydroponic sort of vertical farm that then you're going to feed to your sheep or your cows that are inside? I think that would change.
3, 2, 1, and we're recording.
And I've got a brand new combine harvester, I'll give you the key. You got 50 acres and I've got 43, and I got a brand new combine harvester, I'll give you the key. Oh, hello Joshua Brock.
How are you, James?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for that lovely song as well, rendition.
We have the third man to enter the Hydra's hole, and this man's name is Joshua Brock, and he's done many things in his life, but we're mostly going to talk about his life in farming so far, which is ongoing. So Josh Brock, tell us about your farming experience. How does a young boy from North Horsham, from the urban areas of North Horsham, wander into the farming industry?
As cheesy as it sounds, it would probably be following a dream. So I know it's bad, isn't it? So I went to university and got a degree, as most people do, or some people do, not everyone. And I worked in retail after university, and I wasn't really enjoying it too much. And I kind of had a dream that I wanted to go and be a farmer and be part of something that was a bit more important than folding jeans on a Saturday.
But you weren't just folding jeans, were you?
I wasn't just folding jeans, no. But it's what it felt like most of the time. And that's what sort of took me on a bit of a journey to Australia and carrying on and sort of, playing a bit of rugby along the way and sort of trying to be a farmer, really, trying to put myself into that sort of sphere, which had its challenges along the way, but all worth it. And sort of, did take me some pretty cool places and met some pretty cool people and learned a lot of lessons along the way, mainly not how to break tractors and sort of sheep and cows and everything like that, really.
Well, that's it. I think that's the end of the podcast. Pretty much.
It's a wrap. Thank you very much.
Josh, what was your degree? What did you study, Josh? Because it wasn't farming, was it? It wasn't agriculture or anything like that.
It wasn't, no. So I've got a sociology degree. So I went to uni and sort of did the sports science thing. I was like, I don't want to do this. So I sort of turned it into sociology and wanted to do something that was a little bit more sort of general and something I was kind of interested in. And it was good. It's pretty better for me than a sports science degree. And again, learned a few lessons.
Why farming of all the things that you could have chosen? What was it that attracted you to farming?
You say you had a dream, but I mean, something must have inspired you to have the dream in the first place.
Exactly.
I think there was a lot of. It's always hard. It's a hard one to answer because it's quite a common question. But I think the biggest thing was being part of something that was more important than retail. I just couldn't get my head around why. So I was working like nights in the retail shop, and it was all about like this standard of folding and presenting all these clothes, and I just couldn't get my head around why that was so important. And you were such a small cog in a massive machine, and I just couldn't get my head around it. Why it was also important. I just thought, and I wanted to be part of something that was a bit more integral to all of us. And I think that was the thing that I probably didn't realise quite what I was getting myself into. But and as naive as it sounds, and it sounds absolutely ludicrous now. And I'd never admit this to any of my farming friends, but like you go into a supermarket and you buy a bag of carrots, that's from a family farm somewhere. And so every single thing we do day to day is so connected to farming. And then so I took myself out of that environment of retail shopping, folding jeans, presenting jeans in this such specific way that was so important to this brand. So why am I doing it? Like, why is this important? And then if you compare that to them farming and, this, carrot farmer with his family farm that he's probably been farming it for 3-4 generations or maybe even longer. I just wanted to be part of something that was a bit bigger than, I guess, me and that sort of big retail beast that I was sort of part of, as cheesy as that sounds, but I think that's the truth.
We talked about that the other day, the meaning of work. So you're an example. You're a living and breathing example.
Well, I was until I sold. Well, I didn't sell out.
Hang on. We're not there yet. So you're working in this big chain that will go unnamed.
Yeah. All going named, yeah. Good.
And so you're getting more and more disillusioned with this. You get fed up, and you decide to pursue farming. So, of course, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but farming seems to me to be very much a generational industry, right? So it gets passed down from generation to generation. Is that still the case?
Yeah. Well, the foundations of it, yes. And there are people that do go about it and be this sort of, you term yourself as a first generation farmer, which I term myself as quite proudly. But it's a lot of hard work to really get into it. And if you're born into a family farm and you've got, whether it's 100 acres or 1,000 acres, you've got an opportunity there to do something with it. Whereas if you're not from that background, it's harder to get into it. But there's also advantages of coming from that background. You're a lot more free and you can go and sort of do a lot of other things. Like that's why I was probably so lucky to go and have lived in Australia and New Zealand and worked in all sorts of different farming and met heaps of different people. If you're from a family farm, you probably wouldn't have those benefits. But it is hard. It's hard. I think it's hard to get into it. There's obviously people that will come out and go, I've made a bloody good go of it, but I think it's just harder work.
So what's the first step though? So you're sitting in the store cupboard at the shop. Where do you go from there? Is there a website that you can go on and like findmyfarmer.com?
I was very lucky with the rugby stuff. So I sort of so there's rugby, not really high standard or anything like that, but there's sort of rugby recruitment sort of agencies that say, why don't you come and play for this team over in Australia? What we'll do for you is we'll give you a job. We'll pay for your rent for a few weeks and we'll maybe give you a car or something like that. And obviously traveling with sport is such a fantastic thing. You go into a team of people that want to meet you, show you around and introduce you to all their friends, and you kind of become part of a family. And that's what sort of happened with the rugby. And it was sort of I'll come and play for you. I really want to get into farming. Do you reckon you can find me some work on a farm? And that's how it all sort of began. So I had a really nice chap called Pratty who played in the front row. I think he was like a 4th or 5th generation sort of sugarcane farmer in North Queensland. And I sort of started working for free. And he sort of taught me how to drive tractors and gave me a few bollockins, a few tellings off and on the way when I broke stuff. But it's the way you learn, and just sort of build it from there. So I guess the first step is take any opportunity you can take it to get into it. I think I just kind of had to chuck myself into it and work for free and do some pretty grueling, horrible, just physical labour, and you just build from there, really. Yeah, there's a few good stories, I suppose. Not that I can tell them very well.
What was it like the first time? I mean, you say very physical labor. I mean, as I understand, being on a farm is a very very intensive and industry under a lot of pressure. For example, for crops, there's only a very narrow time window when you can harvest, and so you have to be very efficient. You have to have the machines working. If something breaks down, that potentially means millions of euros or dollars or wherever you work in of loss. And so you have to really follow a schedule, I suppose. You have to get up on time. You have to do your things on time. And so how was that, coming from that other world and starting then to do all this kind of very hard physical kind of job? How was the transition for you?
I was always very lucky, Sal, that I've always worked physically, like Bernie and like Edgy as well. I'm not sure what you do as well, Sal, but lots of physical labour in our younger years, and it's something, again, moving out of that was another reason I wanted to get out of the retail, because I couldn't find them. I didn't feel very like masculine or manly, and that was another sort of driver to get into farming, because it made me feel good. I was part of something that's bigger than me. I was working hard every day, and you're also part of something that's, again, like going back to that sort of foundation of it, is something bigger than yourself, like especially livestock farming, crops as well, all of it. Like you live and die for, you sort of talk about like the physical labour or the getting up early on time and all that sort of stuff, because it's your life. That's what you do it for. You're fully immersed into it, and that's I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and all part of like my masters and all that sort of stuff is the business side of farming. And I've come from a different background where I haven't had the lifestyle as much. It's been more of a job. Well, I have had the lifestyle, but it's been a job along the way, and I sort of get a bit frustrated with farmers who are very lifestyle-y and don't want to push their business on and all that sort of stuff. And I had to kind of get reined in by one of my lecturers the other day who said to me, well, it is still a lifestyle. And I sort of had to take a step back for a second and go, it is still a lifestyle. Like, you can finely tune a business as much as you want, but unless you really want to do it and you really believe it and you want to be part of that lifestyle, it's never going to succeed, I suppose. You won't have that passion for it. So to answer your question, Sal, without too much of a long way around the woods, I absolutely loved the transition into it, to be honest with you. It was everything that I wanted to do, and it was everything that I was living my dream, I suppose, chucking myself into the deep end with it, and absolutely loving it.
Okay, so it was less of a transition then, but it was more something that you already had felt a calling for before, and maybe the job that you did before actually was like taking you into the wrong environment, and so basically you return to something where you would feel like your true self. As you said, you felt more masculine, more connected to the work, maybe to the physical labor. Okay, interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah.
I think you're bob on there. So absolutely, yeah. It was just something that I just wanted to do, and I just pushed myself to do it, I suppose. Definitely.
And how many different sort of farms have you worked on, Joshy? Like, what kinds of farms and in which places have you worked?
I have worked on, how many farms have I worked on? I'm really lucky, right? And this is,
Why do you keep saying you're lucky? You said that like 5 times. You're not lucky.
I do feel lucky. I feel super lucky to have done all the things
you've made your own luck, I think. Well, you've found these opportunities and you've exploited them, right? So that's not luck.
Yeah. Anyway, modest along the way. I've worked on dairy farms. I've worked on calf rearing farms, big cropping farms. I've worked on sheep farms, deer farms, beef farms, and a whole mixture of all of them at the same time along the way. I've worked on, my first farm was a lemon myrtle farm, which was lemon myrtle. So it's like an indigenous, plant in Australia that smells like lemon. They make a lot of tea out of it, but also it's got these really great healing properties for like skin problems like eczema and other things like that. So it was worth a pretty penny, and it was all organic and everything like that. So it was an interesting place to go and learn, but it was horrible at the same time because you're just a backpacker to them, and you were just a slave. So to go back to that physical side of things, you were just a slave there. And it was organic as well. So I was in North Queensland. I think at one point I counted 60 mosquito bites on both of my arms just because I couldn't wear any mosquito repellent because it was organic, and it was just.
That's the other side of the coin. It was organic.
It was horrendous.
Somebody got eaten alive for that biscuit.
Exactly. For your eczema. So I've worked on lots of different farms, lots and lots of different farms in Australia. And that's where I sort of started, and in New Zealand, Australia, a lot. So I was sort of a lot of Australia. I haven't worked in all the states. I didn't work in Northern Territory, and I didn't work in Southern Australia, but I worked in all the other states. And I worked in both the North and the South Island of New Zealand, and in the UK I've worked in Wales. So I did quite a few lambings as well. So I've worked a bit in Wales, Hertfordshire, and a lot down in West Sussex. I'm just about to go up to Scotland for 3 weeks of lambing next week. Not this week, next week. On the 15th I go.
You're a shearer also, right?
I can take a fleece off. This is a very dangerous thing. So if any shearers ever listen to this, they go, "You're not a shearer." So I can take a fleece off, James. I'm not a shearer though. So I do a bit of shearing in the summer, just for people with sort of small flocks and just for a bit of cash, and I really, really enjoy it. It's kind of like the exercise that you lads do. It feels like that for me. It's a good workout,
Awesome.
It's very, very addictive.
Yeah, no real shearer. Shearer for me, John.
And it is an absolute. It's an absolute religion to a lot of them. It's their sport, it's their social life, it's absolutely everything to them.
But
if I could go back into something, I'd love to go and be a shearer for a wee while. Because a lot of people they'll go to New Zealand, so they follow the seasons around the world basically. So they go shearing in New Zealand and Australia, and then come back here for the summer, earning very good cash as well, and then just keep following it around for as long as they can kind of do it. Back in the day, especially in Australia, it's how people would have saved up to buy farms and everything like that.
Yeah, skill like that. How do you? So you say you're going to Scotland next week. How does this work come in, Josh? Are you kind of on a network? Or, I don't know, on a Facebook farming page, and your job offers come up and you apply, or how does it work?
Exactly like that. So but it's so there's something called the National Sheep Association, the NSA, and they basically every season, because lambing is a sort of a seasonal thing, sort of spring or kind of early, starts in January and it goes till sort of like May, and then all these farms that need sort of lambing help, because they don't need someone full-time employed, they just need someone to come and help them for a few weeks. They will literally just advertise their farm. So this one I'm going up to is in the Scottish borders, Morag and Blair Coburn. They've got sort of 1,000 Cheviots, which is the breeder sheep, and they've just advertised it. And I've got lots of holiday left from last year from work, because obviously no one could take any holiday off. Well, it could, but there was no point with COVID. So I've taken sort of 3 weeks off and going to go and sling myself into that for a few weeks and not sit in front of a screen for 12 hours a day.
So we fast forwarded a bit, Joshy, because we were in Australia and New Zealand and sort of farm backpacking around the place, and suddenly you're in front of a screen. So what happened there?
So to not be too negative about it, so I got back from Australia in when did we go skiing, Jamesy? 2019.
January 2019.
So January 2019. So I got back end of 2018. Then for December, had Christmas. Me and Jamesy went skiing, and then I did 4 lambings. So I did 4 lambings. So this was coming back from Australia. Sorry. So I did 4 lambings. I did one in Aberystwyth in January, night lambing, working 8 till 8 in the night, so 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. In January, and it was cold. And living in a caravan, it was cold. February, did a lambing in the Cotswolds. Then I went to East Sussex, and then I went and sort of finished one on a job I got in West Sussex, really close to where we're all from, down in Washington. And the job was sort of promised, and it was going to be really great, and it didn't quite materialise the way I anticipated it to, which I was really disappointed about, because it was kind of like the dream job. Well, I thought it was a dream job anyway. And then I sort of went and worked to another farm a little bit further along down in Stenning, and that again just wasn't quite what I anticipated it to be. And what I started to find was, in Australia and New Zealand, in the Southern Hemisphere, there's lots of opportunities in agriculture to go and progress, to go and manage a farm, or at least sort of have a bit more responsibility. Whereas what I found here in the UK is that there isn't quite the opportunities that there are down in the Southern Hemisphere as much. There maybe would be if I went to Scotland, but I wasn't quite ready for that sort of jump again, just being that I just moved home. So I was kind of looking about. I started my Masters, and then sort of looking about for a few jobs, and the job that I'm doing now. So basically I'm working and selling for a software, agricultural software company. So it kind of led me to it was a bit about the opportunity that I couldn't get my hands on a good opportunity in farming to keep myself into it. And I had a bit of a bad taste in my mouth about the 2 previous farms, just because I didn't feel like I was getting as much out of it as I really wanted to. And it was kind of putting me off it a wee bit. And then I really believe as well in the product that I'm selling is that, farmers, to be sustainable for the future and to build the business like we kind of touched on before, they need a tool like we're selling to actually be able to record everything that they're actually doing and be able to, that's not just, day-to-day business stuff, also animal performance and stuff like that. So that's kind of what led me to working for AgriWeb now, and it's been a really good challenge. I do miss the farming a lot, which is why I'm going lambing again. But there's also certain bits that I don't miss about it, to be completely honest with you. Which is
sorry, mate, go on. Don't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. It was just, I don't know what I was going to say, to be honest with you, but I was probably just rapping on about the disappointment of what it was, and how this job's really has, it's given me a lot of stuff that you don't get in farming. This job has given me,
So you're finding that in the UK, a lot of the farmers are just old school and not and aren't developed, like you said earlier, don't want to develop their business, and that is kind of what bothers you about it. They're a bit unwilling to get with any new ideas and see the world how it is today, kind of thing.
Not all of them, and you'd never want to tar. And this is where I'm going to tread very carefully because I don't want to get myself in hot water. But there's definitely a big proportion of farmers that would be maybe that way inclined. But whether they're business orientated or they're just old school traditional farmers, all they want someone to come in and do is be a bit of a boy for them, be a bit of a dog. And if you've got some aspirations in farming but don't really want to go and set something up for yourself to go and either manage or even have career progression, it's just not really there as much. So say in New Zealand, you could work your way, you could go to a big station you would start out as the boy, but then eventually, you know, as things go on, you progress up and you get more responsibility, and then you eventually maybe become stock manager, and then maybe become farm manager, and there's that career progression which you will get, and which I'm now enjoying having about my job now. Whereas at the other two jobs, it was like you come in at the bottom and that's where you're going to stay, you know, because you know they're never going to.
At the bottom, you're still here.
They're still here, exactly, and especially with family as well, like. Family's always going to come, you know, blood's thicker than water, isn't it? And I'm just water to a lot of these people, and that's where you kind of stay.
There's a line.
Which is true, though, isn't it? You know, and it was a stark reality, but it was very disappointing. And there probably would have been things I could have changed about it, but at the same time, I didn't have the patience for it, you know.
Mm-hmm. So it's called AgriWeb.
AgriWeb, yep.
So what exactly is this app? What does it do?
So AgriWeb is a cloud-based farm management software. So it's all on your phone, and through the app on your phone and through the web portals on your computer, you can create all your records for day-to-day stuff, which would be your record, your vet and meds, any deaths, where your animals are on the farm, what you might be feeding them. Then also you can go into stuff for your crops as well, so what you're putting on the land, what you're putting into the land, how your grass is growing, how your crops are growing, what you've harvested off the land. Then also you can go into, and the stuff that kind of gets me going is the animal performance side of things. So, you know, breeding from animals, because it comes down to, you know, performance recording as well. You know, your animals you can have 2 different sheep, and one sheep every year will give you a set of twins, and then the other sheep will only give you a single. You're going to want to keep breeding from the one that's going to give you a set of twins, because it's more efficient for the business, more productive, it's more environmentally friendly as well, because you're going to need to have a sustainable business. If you've got a load of sheep that are only giving you singles, you need to keep a lot more ewes that are going to give you all the lambs that you need to have a sustainable business. Whereas if you can breed from ewes that are going to give you 2 lambs, you need less mums to give you those lambs that you need to drive your business on, you know. And it's just having an easy tool, because what farmers will do, like we all do, is you get a bit of pen and paper and you write everything down, but then you can't easily find that again. It goes missing in the truck, the dog runs over it, it gets wet, goes through the washing machine, you know, all these horror stories you hear about. You know, I talk to farmers every day, and they're like, one good story was so he was weighing all his cows. He was at number 99. He'd done the other ones, and he was writing all these weights down this bit of paper, and the cow 100 reached over the top of the railings and chewed on his bit of paper and ate the whole bit of paper, and he lost all his whole day's work. And you think you would just lose your mind, wouldn't you? Whereas what you can do now is you can get Bluetooth weigh heads, you can get Bluetooth electronic ID tags. So you scan the cow's or the sheep's ear tag. It'll pull up her individual number. Then she walks onto the weigh scales. This is her weight. You can see how much weight she's been putting on, if she's losing weight, so if she's healthy or not, if she's unhealthy, is she eating enough, is she getting enough nutrition. And this can just go Bluetooth straight into your app, into your phone, and then you can see all 100 cows without your phone getting eeten, and well, hopefully it doesn't get eaten anyway.
But then it's on the cloud.
It's all there.
Right.
It's all in the cloud, exactly.
It's all backed up.
The cloud. It's a wonderful thing.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So is it kind of cold calling what you have to do? Ring people up, ring farmers up and see if they're interested, or?
Thankfully, it's not too much cold calling. It's more so what you can do with AgriWeb is you can start a free 14-day trial. And so a lot of farmers through marketing and everything like that, they hear about it and they start their 14-day trial because they've obviously seen what they're like in the advert. So they've kind of got a bit of skin in the game. So they've started building their farm and they've started getting their animals on there and everything like that. And then I just give them a call and have a bit of a chat to them and see how they're getting on, and then
tickle them right under the chin. That's what you do so well, isn't it?
I'll do you a deal. And that's how it kind of goes, really. And it's really good because, I mean, there are other software companies out there, but we're in a really good spot. Just because I think we've got a lot of ambition and we've got quite a lot of funding, and we're really trying to revolutionise the industry. And I guess we'll probably talk about it later, but like the big environmental sort of cloud that sort of looms over livestock farming or all farming, if you can prove what you're up to, and you can then start to measure, because the big sort of slogans, you know, measure to manage and all this sort of stuff. If you can get something in place that allows you to measure it, and you can actually then manage it, because you can prove it all with data and all, you know, data's power and everything like that. It's really powerful. So thankfully, sorry to get back to your question, Denny. It's not all cold calling. There's a bit of cold calling in there, but you know,
look at that, yeah. Did we go to that? No, it sounds good. It sounds like a nice compromise between between the real graft, and you're still having the impact you want on possibly even a bigger level. If you can get that out to everyone and all their farms are running more efficiently because of that, you're really fulfilling your kind of original goal.
Yeah.
Would you like
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Would you like to go back into the field eventually, do you think?
I don't know now. I do. Do you know what I'd love to do? What the real dream would be is that there are opportunities out there to go and have a farm, right? So you can be going. I'm part of something called the Tenant Farm Association, and this is in the UK. I'm not sure if it's over your way or not, but what that basically means is whether the council owns farms or whether the National Trust owns farms or big sort of estates own farms, and then they sort of break their big estate down to little farms, then you can go and actually be a tenant on these farms, and you can go and rent it. I think like minimums are like 2 years, but then sometimes you're lucky and get like a 15-year, it's called an FBT, so farm business tenancy. So for me, the real ambition or dream would be to be able to have a job like I've got now, which is having the impact on the industry. You're also meeting a lot of people, which I like to do. You obviously got more career sort of progression, better money, sometimes a better lifestyle, and it would then give me the opportunity to go and get a small farm, which I could then run on the side, which would give myself also that sort of, I can have some of my own sheep, I can have some pigs, I can have some cows, I can have that environment to still go and enjoy the things I love to do, but is also not the be all and end all, because I think I'm obviously I hope it comes across, but I'm super passionate about it. But I guess it got to a point when I was working that it wasn't giving me everything that I wanted it to give me. So if I could kind of build my own life to give me both sides of the coin, I think that would be the dream, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to have goals, isn't it? Whether they're achievable or not, I don't know. But you got to aim for something, haven't you?
Yeah.
I like it. Sounds nice.
I reckon you're more than welcome anytime. Once you get set up.
You're doing your masters now, Josh. What's that's farming related? What's that about?
So I'm doing a masters in agricultural science and food production at an agricultural university in the UK called Harper Adams. So it's been really good, and especially this year because you kind of have to do a few subjects that you might not be so into. So I had to do quite a lot of research methods and things like that. But this year's been really sort of getting going with the farming topic. So sustainable farming, livestock husbandry, and I've got to do. Yeah, and so it's been really good. So I've been really learning a lot and just talking to other people that are interested in it at the same time. So it really sort of gets the old creative juices flowing and makes me realise how much I don't know and how much I need to know. And it's good, humbling in some ways. But what's also quite cool is that I've got a lot of practical experience, so it makes me look at it a bit differently. But I wanted to do it just to give myself the skills so I could go and do something other than just farm, So open up these doors.
Do you find in the office, like amongst your peers in the office, have you got more farming experience or less farming experience than the rest of them?
It's a real mixed bag, actually, Denny. It's so Beth, who's like the success and support. She's from a family farm, so she's got a lot of dairy and sort of arable experience. We've got a new chap that started, Tom, who did like a year over in New Zealand milking cows. Annabelle, who's an Aussie, he's come over from a big family farm over in Australia, but has also been working for the brand for quite a long time, or the company, sorry. And then Campbell, our boss, has come who's I think he was employee number 3 when AgriRev was just a startup, and he's completely sort of business based and has never really sort of done anything with a farm. But I guess what's quite cool is everyone sort of complements each other, especially there's just when you start getting into the tech stuff and the business stuff, there's just so much you need to know and how things actually work. Like I'm fine picking up the phone and having a chat with people about farming all day, but you get me into the marketing side of things, or even how we're steering ourselves here in the UK. It's all very interesting stuff. So yeah, I guess everyone's kind of got a little bit of different experience and everything like that. But what is quite interesting, and I kind of said to you at the start, is how wherever you go in the world, farming is always a little bit different. So being from the UK and done a bit of farming in the UK, and how we need to shape our brand a little bit differently to how Australia needs to shape it, and sort of different attitudes and different, it's almost cultural, isn't it? The different sort of way it all works and it's put itself together and everything like that, Shaping the product to the right people, trying to speak out to the right people and shape it so it does pull in. So I don't have to do too many cold calls, Denny, because they are soulless sometimes.
I've kind of glamorised the idea of cold calling. I'm quite interested in like sales psychology type of thing. So I feel like when I say that, I'm not trying to make you out to be some sort of slave. I actually quite like the idea of it all, you know.
Tim Ferriss.
Like that.
100%.
Yeah, I do. I find it interesting, and like you say, especially gearing it towards that'd be an interesting market to kind of work out how to appease. Because, like you say, I bet some people, if you did cold call, would just want to put the phone down on you. These type of people are not patient; they got things to do, haven't they? And you don't want to waste their time, so you have to come in with the right tone.
Exactly, yeah. And that's exactly what we're finding at the minute, because it's lambing and calving time. Like, getting them on the phone is just an absolute nightmare, because it's all seasonal. You know, they're like, mate, I'd love to talk to you. It sounds like a great idea, but I'm looking at the back end of 2 cows that are pulling out a calf right now, and I need to go and see to them. I don't need to be talking to you about I could maybe, revolutionise the way I'm writing down my deaths and my vets and meds. But
But they call me in June.
Yeah, exactly. I've got about 10 calls for the first week in June, because it's like, call me back in June. I'd love to have a conversation with you, but the psychology of selling is very interesting as well, Danny. Like, the way you have to sort of, build your conversations and all that sort of stuff. It's something I was so blissfully
under the radar. Yeah.
Exactly. I was so blissfully unaware of it, and I was really lucky with the job. Like, they flew me out to Australia for the first couple of weeks of my job, just so you can kind of learn the culture, or the culture of the company, but also then learn the nuts and bolts of how I'm going to do my job. And you just listen to the real silver tongue devils, and how they sort of have those conversations with people. It's so clever. It is.
Yeah, you could. It's an art sometimes, isn't it? They say.
100%, definitely. I feel rude. Can I ask questions back to you guys? Like, Danny, do you have to do lots of sales stuff for your gig?
I think, I'll be honest. I think just reading some kind of like some of these basic sales books and stuff like that has given me a good idea of just not. A lot of it's about not over talking, isn't it? Which is probably something I suffer with more than the average man. But
you and me both,
Yeah, it is that kind of thing. You got to not scare people, I suppose. And I realise you've got to listen to what people want. I'm trying to think of maybe a good example, which doesn't make me sound like I'm some sort of rogue, but it's like, you've got to understand that a professional has a different opinion on what a customer wants, and sometimes people don't want to spend extra money to get people want something to look different, and that's what they want, and you have to understand that, and then sort of giving them the option without making out that they're doing something wrong, which I think actually a lot of builders get wrong. They kind of almost want to correct people, and it's like, but people don't want that. People are happy with, it's like a painter. Some people want things a different colour, and other people are fussy if there's a run, and you've got to try and talk to someone in a way that doesn't offend them and say, so do you want me to do a crap job? Because that's not what you're asking, is it? It's like, how much time do you see what I mean, though? Things like that.
Yeah. 100%. Well, it's about letting them lead themselves to the solution, isn't it? Whatever that is.
Suggesting.
Exactly, and finding out what they want. Yeah. So, and that's the thing. I mean, people think sales is kind of dirty, but actually, yeah, like you say, sometimes you're letting someone realise what they want and making them feel good about it, rather than, yeah, like I say, what I've seen some builders do is kind of, you're making someone feel bad about their house, and you know what I mean? People are happy Definitely. With what they got. It's so yeah, I do. I guess it's helped me in a subtle way, but not as much as I'd like, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think the biggest thing with it is that they're going to either want it or they're not, and no matter if you are the smoothest silk, if they don't realise that they need it, they're not going to buy it. So it's just about, they've kind of got to be ready to embrace some change, and I guess that's where I'm super lucky that I absolutely love what I sell. I absolutely believe in it to the absolute end, and that where agriculture is at the moment, it's at this real sort of transition phase of sort of being old school, but now it's going to have to change. And it's, with all the stuff that's going on, like I was just watching a bloody documentary on the cowspiracy and how cows are the devil and livestock production is the devil. And
decow.
No, it's called cowspiracy.
No, I'm writing that down.
It's and listen, there's probably a lot of it that is grounded in it, but again, going back to that point of measuring to manage, to prove either them right or wrong, or to be able to manage what's going on with cows as you produce them for beef and as we eat them as steaks, you need to be able to prove the whole thing along the way, its whole life cycle, from the day it drops on the ground to the day it's goes to the abattoir. You need to have that tool, and that's where farmers, hopefully, and that's where this product or Agri will come in, is that it's given to farmers that tool for a good price, and it's going to give them the tool to revolutionise their business and their lives and everything like that. Really, I think.
I'm sold. Where do I sign?
Exactly. Maybe I'm sold as well. That's the problem. And why I feel so lucky as well. Like going back to that bit, like I've got mates that work in like a solar. They still go and do like this solar sort of job of selling other software, selling something they don't really believe in, but the cash is so good, so they're like, well, it'll be worth it. I couldn't imagine getting up every day and doing something like that, if you don't really believe in it.
Yeah, we talked about that last time actually, in the meaning of work, which will be out before this probably. But yeah, that's the answer. You have to wake up and you have to do it.
And be helpful, be useful. So, which is something you feel like you're doing definitely. So it's admirable.
For sure.
I hope so.
So what's the future? What's the future of farming then, Josh? I've seen these vertical farms, like these big city farms.
Yeah.
What do you think of those?
I think they're very, very interesting. I don't think we're going to feed a ever-growing population on vertical farms, but it's very good, and the way that they're set up in cities and the way they can kind of complement other sort of sides of agriculture, I think they're a bit of a novelty. But I think there's definitely some like for me, if you could grow like barley or wheat or a grain that's doing something, you could grow that vertically. This is obviously my ignorance maybe. Then power to them, but I just think the novelty of growing micro herbs or growing sort of special greenery that you can go and have your super smoothie, which is 10 quid in London, like fair play, but it's not really solving the big underlying issue that we need to feed a hell of a lot of people by, I think, is it 10 billion by 2030 or 2050 or something like that. How are you going to do that on less ground? Yeah, how are you going to do it? So I think power to them. I think it's very cool, and I'd be very. This was something I learned about in my last module, which was sustainable farming. Like, it is very interesting. But when it starts to scale up, are they going to stay in the cities, or then they're going to start going out into the country and then taking up other land for other things? It's interesting. I personally don't think vertical farming is the future of agriculture.
Boom! There's your headline.
Personally, I think it's cool though. Don't get me wrong.
So do you think it's not scalable enough, or why do you say it's not the future? Because like for somebody who's a layman, like who doesn't understand anything about it, like myself, it seems to me that if you have the space, like 1 by 1 meter, for example, and you grow something in the soil, and you take that and then you grow 20 times as much vertically. It sounds like it's more of a bang for your bucks for the square meter. So why do you think it's not working really? Why is it not so scalable?
I think potentially it is scalable. I think it's what they're growing though. I think, again, going back to that, like micro herbs, bok choy, what else are people growing? What was the other thing the other day? Lettuces, probably spinach, things like that. You're never going to feed a lot of people on what they're growing in vertical farming. So I think the novelty is great, and what you can do is fantastic. And there are lots of people that there's a big one that's just about 2 years ago. There's a big one that got the go ahead in Worcester way. So it'd be interesting. This is like a big sort of scale one. But then I guess the thing is, how far can you go up before you have to go out? And then if you're scaling that, so then if you're talking about doing it in cities, you can do it, but then if you want to grow a bigger business, are you then going to move out the city and then you're going to go into more of the country, more of the rural area, and then you're maybe taking up more ground, which could be used for something maybe that's more productive and more efficient for feeding more people. And then it completely changes the sort of the makeup of it. Like, what was a great idea because you're doing it on quite a small scale in London, and you're scaling it up, and in your 10 by 10, or probably not 10 by 10, whatever those sort of shipping containers are, that you've got you've got 2 sort of lines of them, but they're 10 stacked high. That's really great. But then when you take that out of the city, because you want to have 20 shipping containers full, that's when you start changing the sort of makeup of vertical farming, I think. And from my naivety and my ignorance, I'd say we've got bigger issues than giving posh restaurants and posh juice bars the spirulina and the micro herbs and the everything like that.
Yeah. So you think it's a hipster fad?
It's not fad. I think it'll always be around. It's very cool. It's very cool. Very, very cool. And if you look at, the people that have got the money are the people that are buying their spirulina smoothies every morning after they've done their their spin bike, and that's what's going to make people money. Like, fair play. But
so you say it's also the choice of vegetables or what they're using it for is basically not feeding enough people. So if it were potatoes that were using all that space, it would be something different. Like, is that a problem, or because I'm trying to understand what the problem is with hydroponics, because I really know nothing about it, so I'm really it's totally ignorant about this whole topic.
For me, it's what they've grown. If you could grow spuds, if you grow potatoes, this is something that I'd be very interested in. So, in livestock farming, a lot of people will buy in sort of feed, so they're called like sheep nuts or cow nuts, and basically it's like a mixture of like grain, and it's a mixture of sort of soya that's brought in probably from South America or something like that, and it gets brought in these little nuts, like little brown nuts, almost looks like muesli to us, and you feed that to your stock. What I think, and what some Australian farmers are doing with hydroponics and vertical farming, instead of growing these micro herbs and everything like that, they're growing turf, so they're growing grass hydroponically, vertically. So instead of then importing all these nuts from, with loads of soya in them from South America, which is going to have a massive sort of carbon footprint, why not grow grass in a greenhouse or in a hydroponic sort of vertical farm that then you're going to feed to your sheep or your cows that are inside? I think that would change. That would then be, for me, it would be producing something, because I think my biggest thing, I guess, Sal, is that what you're growing vertically, or what these sort of, as James sort of labelled them, these hipsters are growing as in these sort of vertical farms, it's stuff that's supplying that market, whereas it's not really feeding. It's never going to feed the world, is it? Whereas if you could produce turf or grass, so I keep calling it turf, if you can produce a load of grass in vertical farms under these sort of UV lights and hydroponically, that you can then feed to your sheep, so then you stop bringing so much soya in from South America, you stop having to buy all these sort of sheep nuts in. Yeah, I think that would be bloody awesome. I'd love to do it. I'd be so interested in doing it. And so there's quite a few farms that are doing it in Australia. So they're growing these sort of, they've got these great big hydroponic setups. They're just growing grass, and I don't know how quickly it turns a bit of grass around, but it looks bloody interesting. And then all these cows just wade up, and they just get these great big, nice long bits of turf. Like, let's go, a great big bit of steak of grass, and the cows and the sheep get right into it. And I think that'd be bloody interesting.
Good stuff. Any final comments, Josh? Any shout outs?
Thank you for listening to me rant on. Thank you for your lovely questions. No.
I've known you since school, Josh, and it's definitely nothing. It's feels like a real organic path, because it's definitely nothing I would have, back in school had you down as being a farmer. So it's just a nice story that you've just found your way there with no apparent kind of influence. It's just what you've really chosen to do and followed it. It's nice. You don't hear that often.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Again, I feel very lucky to have found what I'm...
Again.
I feel lucky to have found what I'm passionate about,
You don't roll out of bed and it all just falls... You look for these opportunities and then you make the most of them. You don't give yourself enough credit. That's what I think.
Well, there it is.
But no, you're doing a great job, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it, and it's great to see you.
Thanks for being here.
Cheers, sir. Cheers, lads. Bloody good. Bloody good.
Cheers, Josh Brook.